How can I keep myself engaged with my spiritual awakening? Sometimes I feel like I'm drifting away from my enlightenment. Okay, so let's get to the bottom of this question. And a lot of times, the energy that I can feel in this question and is present in a lot of spirituality circles is the idea that when I wake up and I start on my spiritual journey, that I have to somehow keep up with the spiritual awakening with like practices, and I have to do meditation and yoga and all these different practices. And if I stop doing these practices or these spiritual things, then suddenly I'm falling off track when it comes to my awakening. And I've had a lot of people message me and email me about this. So let's cut the legs off of this myth, okay? Because really when an awakening is triggered, you're going through your awakening, whether you're sitting on a meditation mat, whether you're doing yoga, or whether you're at your computer doing your work, or whether you're having a conversation with a friend, or whether you're dealing with a child that's having a tantrum. Your spiritual awakening is happening. It's not just happening when you're doing all these fancy practices. And a lot of times there's this misconception, okay? And so there's a story that comes to mind here when I think about this, and it really is the idea that you can be some of the most spiritually awakened people on this planet are people that don't do any spiritual practices whatsoever, but they live in the moment, they immerse themselves in life, and they're present in their everyday activities. That's the key to remember here. It's not about practices. It's not about watching a bunch of spiritual videos. It's not about dedicating a bunch of time to spiritual practices. It's learning how to live in an awakened state no matter what you're doing in your life, in your everyday activities. And a story comes to mind from one of my favorite teachers. His name is Anthony DeMello. He was a Jesuit priest. And he told stories about how he would go around the world traveling, and sometimes he would find enlightened people in the most unexpected places. And he told the story one day of a rickshaw driver that he had when he went to India. He was with this rickshaw driver and he started talking to him, and they struck up a conversation. And Anthony DeMello, who was a spiritual teacher at the time, he was just in awe of how awakened this man was. So he was a rickshaw driver. Rickshaw drivers have really, really very difficult lives. And this man was so poor that he had actually sold his bones. Get this, he had sold his bones because rickshaw drivers, when they start doing that line of work, they have very short lifespans from there on in. And so what people do when they're that poor is he actually had sold off his skeleton to science, and he was going to just, use that money to give to his family who was really poor. And he had a bunch of health issues. He had all kinds of things happening to him. He was in a lot of pain. I think he had tuberculosis or something like that. And Anthony DeMello asked him, how can you go on with all of these issues that you have? How do you live your everyday life? And the man just smiled and he said, you just got to learn how to work with whatever life sends your way, and you just got to learn how to work with it. And he just had this beautiful, this kind of joy and happiness to just be here. And Anthony DeMello said he had never met a more enlightened person in his life. Here was someone who's going through tremendous difficulties, and yet through those tremendous difficulties, the power of his awareness was still there, and he knew how to live life. That's the thing. A lot of times, spiritual people, you can be on a meditation mat for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour, but a lot of times what we do is we get up from the meditation mat, or we get out of the yoga class, and we go into our regular everyday life, and we go back into a sleep mode. And we just think that being awakened is when we're doing our spiritual practices, and it's not. And this story here of this man who was, filled with health issues, was extremely poor, had all of these things happen to him, and yet he was living in pure presence. That's being spiritual. That's really learning how to master life and to master an awakening. So when it comes to this question, don't feel like you're going, off track, whether you use spiritual practices practices or not, just remember that every moment in your life is an opportunity to deepen your spiritual awakening. Every single moment. And this happened to me a lot in my own life. So when I went through an awakening, it was a really long awakening. 4 of those years, it was like a 6-year long awakening. 4 of those years I was in hermit mode. I was, totally by myself. And I remember that during those years, I had a lot more time where I would meditate for hours. I would do all this. I would be immersed in nature. I had all of these different practices that I was doing during those years that were necessary at the time for me. But the more that I started to immerse myself in life, the more that I started to get busier with work, that my mission took off, and I just started to get busier. I had a lot more things to do. Then I started working with the team, and I just started to get more immersed in life and busier. I had less time for all of the elaborate spiritual practices that I had done during the initial years of my awakening. And I had to learn quickly how to immerse myself spiritually in whatever I was doing, whether it's shooting a video, whether it's scripting a video, whether it's researching what kind of topics you guys want me to do, whether it's coaching someone, whether it's shooting a course, all of these things that I'm doing in life, in everyday life, whether it's cooking, whether it's taking a shower or brushing my teeth, every single moment in my life is an opportunity to deepen my spiritual awakening and to deepen my connection to my source. And so it's the same for you. So don't think you have to have elaborate practices. Just remember, in your everyday life, no matter what you're doing, you can bring the light of presence into that. And that is deepening your spiritual awakening. So just remember, when you walk out the door tomorrow after watching this video, you can say to yourself, today I'm going to take every opportunity to deepen my spiritual awakening and to deepen my connection to source, whether it's how I talk to a coworker, whether it's how I do my work, whether it's how I speak to my children or my partner or my friends, or just how I speak to a stranger when I'm standing in line at the grocery store. All of these opportunities you can use to deepen your spiritual awakening. You don't have to have all these elaborate spiritual practices. So don't think that you're off track if you have less time to do certain practices. You are always on track when you awaken.